Been waiting for this for 6 weeks, and as a battery geek, this for me is a very, very exciting day. Okay, tabless cell update. Have a little bit more information on these great tabless cells, the Ampace JP40, which is my new favorite, and the EVE40PL. I got more cells directly from Alibaba distributor, which comes straight from the manufacturer. Got some more samples of each to test. I wanted to do that, as I mentioned in the original test, to check for consistency and just make sure that the original ones I had were representative, representative performance of what these cells can do. So got that. The testing I did, I'm going to show it to you here. I'm going to show it sped up. I compressed it as much as I could to make it shorter, but in this case I'm going to speed it up, but not to 20x like I've done in some past videos like before, where you can't really tell what's going on. I'm only going to show it here sped up to like 1.5 or 2x so you can mostly understand what's going on. I know it's boring as F if you're not a total battery geek like me. I know battery tests are like watching paint dry, but I kept them here to show it, more clearly, because I think these are really important cells. This is a breakthrough in performance. These cells are both really important in the marketplace, and I wanted to show here my testing to show accurately the full test results of what I did, to show that these are the real results of the test, how the cells performed, and I'm, giving you the results unbiased and how they are. I don't have any bias, in showing you inaccurate results. So I understand cell tests are super boring. Feel free, if you're not interested in it, feel free to skip ahead. That's why I put chapters here to the next chapter, where I, talk about the results and some other information. So anyway, here are the tests, sped up a little bit. I'm not going to shoot the whole thing. You guys know how I do it already. Started at 421, which is kind of strange. Just came off the charger like I always do. Starting temp 26.3. We'll see you in 10 minutes. .403. 5 minutes. 387. 28.2. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes. Just for quick reference, the previous JP40 ended this test at 368, both of them, which was the best result of any cell. And here we go, 369, 29.9. Okay, Ampace JP40 number 2 on the Constant 5560. Just came off the charger. This one's at 418, so that's what it is. Starting temp 25.2. $3.99. Okay, coming up on 5 minutes. 386, 27.7. Okay, coming up to 10 minutes. As a reminder, the first JP40s did 368. 367, 29.4. But again, this started at 418. I don't know why, but anyway. 367, 29.4. Okay, EVE40PL Alibaba number 1. Just came off the charger fully charged again, 418. I don't know why. Some are coming off at 418. Same charger I've used for all my charging testing. Starting temp 25.1. .402. Coming up on 5 minutes. Already significantly more voltage drop than the Ampace, which is exactly what I found last time I tested both of these. The Ampace were 360, 86 and 387, 380, 28.3. Okay, coming up on 10 minutes. 360 and 30.6. 360 and 30.6. The previous EVEs did 361. Ampace did 368. Just showing here on my tester that it does show charging to 420. However, I got two of these. I got a second one. Got this guy also. It seems like when they come off fully charged, this one's showing 420. They're either 420 or 421. And here we go. On this one showing 420, we're showing 419, better than 418, I guess. Starting temp 20.50. 403. Okay, 5 minutes. 380, 28.0. Okay, coming up in 10 minutes. 360, 30.5. Okay, mixed load on the JP40 number 1 Ampace. Got to start right at 420 this time. Starting temp, it just came off the charger, 26.4. Okay, mixed load, Ampace number 2. It was 420, it just hit 419, so close as I can get it right off the charger. Mixed load. Okay, Ampace number 1, 23 amp, starting temp, got rid of 420, and got starting temp, 25.6. 384. Come up on 3 minutes, the previous Ampace did 367, EVE did 361. Lower, interesting. 366, 33.7, Ampace number 2, 23 amp. Doesn't decide 420, 421. 25.8, starting temperature. 384. Coming up on 3 minutes. I will note that the IR on these two new ones measured a little bit higher than the previous ones I had. So 367, 33.9, 25.4. 387. For reference, the other EVEs did 361. The Ampace did 367 in 3 minutes. Okay, come up on 3 minutes. I'm not doing 361. 359, 35.2. EVE number 1, 23 amp, 25.6. 387. Come up in 2 minutes. 35.1, 358. Okay, 30 amp. Ampace JP40 number 2. 30 amp. Starting temp, 25.5. 25.5. 375. Okay, coming up on 2 minutes. The other ones did 353, 354. 42.2, 353. Ampace number 1, starting 25.3. 376. Okay, coming up on 3 minutes. Other one was 353. We are at 352, 41.0. 371. Coming up on 3 minutes. 345, 41.0. 345, 41.0. So holding in my hand, so outside surface is 29. I'm quite sure the inside core is still 20 degrees though, so it's going to be really interesting to see what temperature increase. I don't take this one as representative because, like I said, I was holding it in my hand, trying to warm it up a little bit. I don't think I warmed it all the way through in 3 minutes. So the outside is 20.9, the inside I think is going to be, in short, I think this is going to show lower temperature increase. Okay, 30 amp, EV number 2, 29.0. 381. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes. The interesting thing to see was, will it do better than 345? Because I was holding this in my hand. Looks like it is. Yeah, it's going to do better. 348, 45.3. Okay, JP40 number 2, 35 amps. Starting temp, 21.8. 365. Okay, previous Ampace ended up at 344. No, this started at a low temperature. I think I'm going to do an experiment, and the next one started warmer and see what happens. Okay, 343, 342, 44.4. Okay, trying a little experiment here. I've had this JP40 sitting on top of the radiator for about 15 minutes to warm it up a bit. I don't think it's really 28 all the way through the cell. The outside is probably 28, inside maybe heated up a little bit. I got my high-tech heating system working here in this beautiful piece of rental apartment because I'm forced to live away from home because of terrorists, Russian, Peters. Anyway, point is, last one I did 35 amp. It was very cool, 21.8 Celsius. This one starting much warmer. I want to see the difference that warmer temperature makes. But like I said, 28, it was on the radiator. 28 is probably the outside of the cell. I don't think it heated to 28 all the way through, but we'll see if it makes a difference. Okay, 27.9, let's call it starting temp. 27.9, 35 amps. 372. Okay, come up on 3 minutes. The other one at 35 did 342 and plus 22.6. 342 is the other one. Oh, looks like it doesn't make a big difference. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, 342, 46.9. Okay, and just comparing quickly, 35 amps. Cold starting temperature versus warm. Cold starting temperature, 342 plus 22.6. Warm starting temperature, 342 plus 19.0. Okay, AV40PL number 1. I heated it up a little bit on the radiator also. 35 amps, starting temp 27.5. 374. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes. The Ampace did 342. 337, 50.6. 337, 50.6. Okay, AV40PL, LE2. Heated it up a little bit. 26.8. 373, 2. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes for reference. The Ampaces were at 342. The original Ampace I got were at 344. 336, 49.8. Okay, after a very, very long break for charging everything. Each of these tests takes me about 3 hours, by the way, each of the group of tests. Ready to charge this. By the way, I've been heating this room with a hairdryer for a long time. Try to get the ambient temp up, and looks like I did it a little bit, so thank God, because we have better performance. So 40 amp, 26.9 starting temperature, Ampace number 1. 364. Okay, coming up in 2 minutes. Make a note of it. 43.4, 346. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes. I don't know how this compares. 50.514 and 331. 51.4 and 331. 27.34. 27.4 starting temp. It's 364. Okay, 2 minutes. 344, 43.8. Coming up in 3 minutes. Other one did 331. 50.9, 330. 40PL number 2, 40 amp. Very warm starting temperature. No, I heated the room. Surprised it's that warm. Well, I just got off charge too. So, starting temp 31.4. Let's see how it does. 369. Coming up on 2 minutes. 47.0, 340. Okay, coming up in 3 minutes. 40 amps. 55.5, 327. 40 amp EV number 1. Starting 27.1. 368. 2 minutes. 45.9 and 339. 53.9, 326. Capacity Ampace 1. Temperature doesn't matter. Doing a 0.9 amps. Starting 421. Okay, JP40 number 1. Capacity test. These are super exciting. Actually, this is kind of exciting because we're coming to 280 and it's almost 4,000. So let's see what it is at 250. That's very cool. 3995. Oh, I just got the end of it. So Ampace number 1. That's pretty impressive. Over the rated capacity. Nice to see. After Lishen and Molicel both were way below the rated capacity, this is actually above it. So very cool. 4032. Ampace LE2 capacity. Gonna do overnight. Our temp is 23 ambient. Ampace 2, come up in 280, 280, 39, 83, 250, 4026, a little less. Keep in mind the temperature now, the ambient temp is 21 degrees only. Okay, capacity down to 25 for EV40PL number 1. Okay, here the super exciting part of the test. Watching the capacity slowly drip down. It's like watching a range test on an e-bike. It's about the same excitement level. I'm doing this so you guys don't have to. And so I have a definitive spreadsheet of all data that I can share with everybody. Okay, 280, 3930. Okay, and continuing the excitement. Now we're counting down at 2.5. You know, the EVs that I've tested so far, the 40P and this one, the 40PL, they've been underwhelming performance-wise. I mean, they perform worse than the competition. But one thing I will say about EVE so far, all cells I've gotten, unlike others, they have the advertised capacity or more, 4,009. Yeah, all the EVs I've tested have had their advertised capacity. Can't say that about Molicel. They've been below advertised capacity. Lishen's have been below advertised capacity. Samsung's have been, although I have a new one here. I'm going to test a brand new one just to make sure that that's the case. But anyway, a lot of cells have less than their advertised capacity, but EVE, at least one thing to their credit, even though the performance to me hasn't been very impressive, they do have the capacity they advertise, so that's good. EV2 capacity. Finally, EV40PL number 2. Sorry, I did not see 2.8. Was working on the charts, the graphs for the chart. So 2.5, 3977. Again, the ambient temp is not very warm in here. It's only about 22 Celsius. So. Okay, so just really briefly going over the results of all these tests of the new batch, the new samples for the JP40 and the EVE. And I'm going to put the spreadsheet on screen too here so you can see these compared to the original ones. Long story short, very consistent. Everything was consistent. Voltage drop, temp increase, the Ampaces were consistent with the Ampace. Even though, remember, these new ones I tested are Ampace labeled. The previous ones are labeled LT22710A. The EV40PLs obviously are labeled the same. Capacity-wise, what was cool about these, they all reached their advertised capacity, well, really close there, or exceeded it, which is awesome because a lot of cells don't. What to show? Just between the Ampace, very consistent, 369, 367 for the voltage drop, +3 and +4. Again, best performance of any cells that I've tested are these Ampace. Mixed load, 377, 376, +5 and +6. You can see on the screen. I'll put the spreadsheet to compare. EVEs did 360 and 360. You can see compared to 369 and 367 on the constant 5560 test, Ampace did much better, +5.5 and +5.5. Ampace had lower temp increase too. Mixed load, these did 370, 370, so consistent, but again, much worse, much more voltage drop than the Ampace after 10 minutes, +6 and +7.7, more temp increase also. And you know, you can see here just briefly, if we look at 30 amp, 352, 353 versus 345 and 348. So again, better there. Temp increase, we did 15, 16, +20, +16.3. 30, I skipped over 23, +35 amp, 342, 342, consistent. EVs, 337, 336, more voltage drop. Temp increase, +19 and +22. Here, +23 and +23, so a little closer. 40 amp. Ampaces did 331, 330. EVs did 326, 327. So not a huge gulf there, but still they did worse. 51.4, 50.9. I need to measure the delta T. It's on the spreadsheet, and here they did 53.3 and 55.5. So anyway, long story short, these cells are consistent with the original ones I had. So the original test is valid, and the thing to me that really is interesting is the Ampace labeled ones performed really identically to the LT labeled ones, proving the thesis that they are the same cell coming from the same manufacturer, just with a different wrap. So that's the quick conclusion of the test. Okay, next part, I'm just going to talk briefly about the EV40PL. Not going to spend a lot of time on it because really the testing showed that everything was consistent. These new samples that I got were very consistent with the results that I got originally. EVE, one thing I really like that they do is all the cells I've tested from them have had their advertised capacity or even a little bit more, so that's really great. But in general, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the EV40PL. I discussed it already in the previous video. To be honest, I'm not super excited about anything about this cell. In almost all parameters, the Ampace JP40 did quite a bit better. There were a couple of tests where the EV had better initial voltage drop, which was cool to see, but on most of the other parameters and temp increase and, you know, voltage drop after 3 minutes, the Ampace did do quite a bit better. So, and I think in most cases, most distributors I've seen, the EV is a little more expensive. So it was consistent, and that's it. They're good performing cells. Just in my opinion, the Ampace gets me more excited. Okay, but about the JP40 though, there is a lot to talk about. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. I know the test was long and boring, so I'll try to make this short. As you know, if you saw the first tabless video, I was super impressed with the performance of the JP40. So much so impressed, so blown away, that I actually put my money where my mouth is, and I bought 200 of those guys from Monster 48 kilowatt Surron battery pack build that I'm going to be doing this winter. But to do a battery that powerful, the whole system, every component in the system has to be upgraded. The bus bars, the BMS, the wiring, the connectors, everything. So that's going to be an exciting project. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about the JP40. So the first thing I want to discuss briefly about the Ampace is labeling. The JP40 Ampace label versus the LT22710A label. You may be wondering, what's the difference? Is there any difference between those cells? I remember when I read Mooch's original test of this cell, he tested the LT labeled version, which he said is supposed to be equal to the Ampace. Well, what's really cool is now I have both kinds, both labeled cells, so I'm able to compare them. I need to go back for a sec to that first tabless test that I did with these cells, and unknowingly, the first Ampace I had, no quote-unquote Ampace, I bought from a US distributor. That was 18650-21700.com. No, they're sold as Ampace JP40s, but the cells I received from there are actually, they came as LT22710As labeled cells. I didn't even notice that at the time. I noticed the stickers on there, but I didn't really notice the difference between Ampace label and the LT. But these, of course, as you can see, they were labeled the LT cells. So actually the first test that I did where I say Ampace JP40, those were LT22710A labels. And those results I have, and I updated the spreadsheet here to put, I wrote Ampace and then in parentheses LT22710. So that was the first batch. That was the original test I did. Now, what's cool is the second batch that I received from the Alibaba distributor. Those are Ampace JP40 labeled cells, instead of the LT. Now, is there any difference? That's probably what you're wondering. That's what I was wondering. And what's great is this testing answered that. And basically, they tested identically. There were just minute differences. 1/100th of a volt here. 1 degree Celsius there. But they tested basically identically. So my conclusion, and what others I think have mentioned, is these cells are produced at the same factory, same place, same time. They're sold under different private labels and different brand labels. So I think you can rest assured, whether you get the LT or the Ampace labeled, you're going to get the same performance. If you're looking to buy, don't worry about those labels and the different brands. They perform identically. Now, as far as I understood, I spoke with both distributors of these cells in the US, 18650-21700.com and DIY500amp.com. And as far as I understood, both of the US distributors of this cell, they have purchased a bunch from the manufacturer, and they are private labeling these cells under their own name. Why they're doing that, I'm not sure. But anyway, so if you see on these sites, maybe they're called a slightly different name, or different letter, and then 22710A, just understand those. I can't say for 100% sure because I don't know, but I believe those are going to be the same cells as the Ampace and LT I tested here and have the exact same performance. For my own battery pack, for my own build that I'm doing myself, I ordered the LT 22710A labeled cells. The reason I got those instead of the Ampace is I was able to find just an amazing killer deal on the LT labeled ones that have cosmetic defects on the label. The labels are kind of stained, but the cells are new, the performance is the same, and I got for an amazing price, which I'll go over in a sec what that price was when I talk about pricing. Okay, about pricing. Speaking about this really briefly, since I did the original tabless video review, pricing hasn't significantly changed on either of these cells. In the US, we've got two sellers. I already mentioned the names of them. They're selling for around $5 to $5.99 each. In the EU, if you're in the EU looking for these, as far as I know, I have not found any EU distributor that has them in stock. No dealer for these, as far as I know. If you know of an EU distributor of these, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And about Alibaba. Now, the normal selling price is still plus minus $3, same as it was before. The distributors I've talked to have said these sold out very quickly, and I've seen that be the case where was looking at some Ampace labeled ones, got pricing, and then the next week I talked to the distributor and they were totally sold out. So they're selling quick on Alibaba. The cells I got were grade A2, like I said, they're LT labeled one with a cosmetic flaw. Now, I'm kind of afraid to even mention the price I got them for, because I think it's not going to be repeatable in the future if you're watching this video 6 months or a year from now. But I will just mention it just to tell you, these cells were listed as at the price of $260 each with a cosmetic flaw, but because I bought in a large quantity, I got for $230 each. So pretty crazy, amazingly low price for this performance cell. I actually got 200 of the LT labeled ones for $230 each with a cosmetic flaw. So when I get them here, of course, I'm going to test them and make sure the performance is consistent. But I need to make a really important point here about Alibaba. If you're in the US, and I know these sellers sell outside the US, but I think especially if you're in the US, I want to highly recommend that you buy the cells from one of the 2 US distributors. I don't have any ties to them. I don't get a commission. They didn't ask me to, recommend anything like that. I'm just saying it as an enthusiast, as a battery geek, as a, high performance PEV enthusiast. Both of these US distributors, that's 18650-21700.com and DIY 500 amp, both of these, they've invested a lot of time and money to stock these cells, and more importantly, to promote tabless technology and tabless cells as a real breakthrough increase in performance, because they really are. So these are really just enthusiasts, hobbyists who have invested their time and money, to promote a big improvement in performance. Austin, the owner of 18650-21700, that's too long of a name to say, he's done tons of research and testing the cells. I'm going to put up here some screenshots from his site. Take a look at it, because you could spend hours looking at his test results. He really has some in-depth test results that he's done on these tests. Cycle life, performance over time, over a number of cycles, the capacity drop, all that stuff. So he's really put a lot of time and work into researching and showing, how these cells really perform, not just slapping them on a site and putting them up for sale. So I suggest that if you're in the US, you support those who support this hobby. I understand though, if you're not in the US or if you're on a really tight budget, saving money obviously is needed, and you're going to look at Alibaba. But again, as I mentioned, I think in the Molicel P50B video, Alibaba, first of all, it's not cost effective if you're buying a low quantity, like 40 cells for an Eastgate. It's just not cost effective with the shipping, and it's not really, cost effective for these sellers. They sell in thousands of quantities. And like I said before, I know it may sound kind of harsh, but on Alibaba, it's not AliExpress. They're not aimed really at a retail customer with a million questions, so please don't bother the Alibaba sellers with lots of dumb questions. Do your research first. Know what you want. Hopefully my videos help with your research. Research the cells, know what you want, and just contact them, get the pricing, and place the order. That's my suggestion. If you have tons of questions and need lots of customer service, then really you should contact a dealer like those 2 guys in the US, and they can answer all your questions. Okay, and just really briefly about cycle life. I've mentioned in the last video, the tabless video, test of these cells, I said that it's kind of a big question mark, or it remains to be seen about the cycle life of the JP40 in particular. I'm not talking now about the EV40PL. Well, I want to kind of clarify that a little bit, because it's not really so much under question. First of all, Ampace does list cycle life info for the cell. I don't have it here in front of me. I believe it's 1200 that they rate it to under not super high load to 60%, but I'll put on the screen here what the exact their exact claim is. But I know it's a pretty good cycle life specification. But also, like I said, Austin from the 18650-21700 site, he's done a lot of testing on cycle life and shown the actual reduction in capacity over the cycles. Really interesting charts that he's got here. Mooch has also done some cycle life testing too on these, but I think he's got those on his Patreon, so I don't have those results. But anyway, about Austin's cycle life test. So he's done cycle life testing now only out to 151 cycles, but if you look at those curves, and I'll put on the screen here, they look really, really good as far as very little capacity decrease after 151. And remember, some cells, I believe the Lishen LR2170LA and the EV40P, those are only rated by the factory to 300 cycles to 60%. And then you see here at 151 on the JP40s, they're almost the same capacity after hard use, 151 cycles as they were new. So I think the cycle life on these isn't going to be an issue at all. I think they're going to do really well. Just keep in mind that, like with any cell, the cycle life depends, and not many people talk about this, and they certainly don't put it in the specs. Well, Molicel does, but the cycle life depends a lot on how hard you run the cell. You know, if you're going to be charging it, each cell charging at 5 or 8 amps and discharging, you know, constantly at 40, 50 amps, you're going to reduce that cycle life a lot. You know, if you can slow charge them at under 1 amp each, and you're, you know, like in my mixed load test, you're using low load for a longer time and then short bursts of high load, well, they're going to last a lot longer. So I just want to kind of clarify that, because I think in the last video I made it sound like, you know, these may not be good for cycle life, like, you know, everything else is good, but cycle life is a question. Well, several places have done cycle life testing, and it looks like really good results. Like, you know, you're not going to suffer in cycle life compared to, for example, Molicel, to get this high performance. So just wanted to clarify that. Okay, and finally, let's wrap it up. What's my conclusion? And I want to talk for a minute about something I haven't mentioned at all in any video yet, but I think about it a lot with these cells and in general, is power to weight ratio. Nobody really talks about that with PEVs. I want to be the one to start to talk about it. So that wraps it up, this update. Like I said, you know, the cells that I tested were consistent, so the results from the first tests are consistent. I updated the spreadsheet. You'll see it here, and you can look on the link of the spreadsheet to see the exact results for all these tests, for all these cells, and for the original ones and these new ones. Like I said, I have been so impressed with the JP40's performance that I bought 200 myself for a ridiculous Surron battery. And the other thing that I think is kind of a testimony to how sort of amazing these JP, I sound like a salesman for it, but honestly I'm not. I have no connection to them. I'm just blown away by the performance. But one thing that's a cool testimony to the performance of these is that everybody I know who's tested these cells, no, a few people, 3 or 4 people I've spoken to who have tested them, have gone ahead and bought them for battery packs. Like, everybody who's gotten one to try has bought them in bigger quantities. So I think that's a huge testimony. Anyway, just briefly, and I want to do a video about this in detail later, but that brings me to the issue of power to weight ratio. Now, it's not talked about a lot with PEVs, like electric bikes, electric motorcycles, Surron, EUCs, or skateboards, or whatever. But, you know, one of the things, I've been a high performance car enthusiast my whole life. One of the things that's really talked about a lot in you know, supercars and hypercars is power to weight ratio. You know, how many pounds per horsepower, kilograms per horsepower, and power to weight. You can have a super fun, fast car with not a lot of power, like Ariel Atom is a perfect example, but that's lightweight, that has a great power to weight ratio, and it's super fun. So, like I said, it's rarely discussed in PEV world, and I just want to, you know, answer this question, because some people in the forums have said, you know, it's ridiculous. Why do you want to build a super powerful Surron? You know, a 30 kilowatt, 35, and now this one is going to be 48 watt. Well, the 48 kilowatt, the battery is going to be capable of 48 kilowatts, but all the other components in the chain, the controller, motor, the rider, probably being me, are not going to be 48 kilowatt capable, at least for now. But, you know, people may say, why? That's ridiculous. Why build a light B, a small light B, you know, that weighs 150 pounds or less? 65 kilograms. Why build one with 40 kilowatts, 65 horsepower? Just get a Stark Varg, you know, a real high-power bike. Build an Ultra B, you know, get a real huge motorcycle for that power. Well, for me, it's all about power to weight ratio. You know, light and powerful, like a light B that's way overpowered like this, is super fun. I would much rather have a light, small bike that's super powerful that you can play with than a big, heavy bike with the same power. But I want to talk about that more and maybe make a comparison chart for all the popular E-motos and talk about power to weight ratio for each bike, because nobody has discussed that as far as I know. And that, to me, is a really important part of how fun these bikes are. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you got something useful out of the video. Like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.